Oh yeah, boys. We be live. Let me make sure. We just make sure everything's working all good. And then let's see. A little bit longer. Hold on. Man, that's a long delay. Why did the stream get? Why is it so delayed? All right, whatever. We're live. Mic works. How you guys doing? I know this is quite early for a lot of people. I know some of you might be at work, or you're gonna get home and whatever. We're 3 hours away from the lock of the first duel. As per usual, as per the rules, I'll go over the slate. And I mean, today we have two races, but I'll spend the first like 15, 20 minutes getting all my thoughts out, getting or just breaking everything down. And then we'll go over any questions people might have towards the end. I don't expect there to be a lot of people watching, just because it's in the middle of a Thursday, of a work day. But either way, if you have any questions or anything, go ahead and drop them in the YouTube chat. I mean, I'm live um, on Twitter, but if you drop them in the YouTube chat, we'll take a gander at them and look through. Now, as stated, several times, I am very excited for this week. I'm able to let's see my screen. I'm able to play completely how I want to. If you look in the lobbies, I got 20 reserve lineups in every contest that I can. So by default, this is going to be a very, very expensive investment week, and I'm looking forward to it. Starting with the duels, quick overview of the videos and stuff, or the duel videos, as we stated in that video. Um, we're noticing now, and we'll talk about it more in Duel 2, but on your screen we have Duel 1 and how the starting positions, as we see the starting positions on your left side here, all these numbers here are where those individual drivers started, or finished rather. We have the starting position here. This is where they finished. More so in the avenue of looking at where the position or what the position is doing in these races. For context, I have the starting grid for the duels on the right side. And if you notice, in duel number one, now there are slight differences in the two duels. We typically see duel two have a slight increase in the amount of yellows. I mean, we're still averaging anywhere from most of the time we're seeing 1 to 2 on the rare side. Three is pretty extraordinary as an extraordinary outcome. But in duel number two specifically, you're going to see a slight change in the average finishing of the starting positions. But for the most part, duel number one, as it's looking like it's going to be this year, is going to be very centralized on gaining or getting people who can finish in the top. Certainly, top 10 is the bare minimum, but targeting people mainly from like third to 15th, unless there's a clear and obvious um, miss in qualifying and something like that. As we look at duel number two, we see that it's, for whatever reason, duel number two. Now, you could argue that it's the fact that people have been on the track before, they were able to watch, they had teammates or manufacturer support that was relayed to them from duel number one, whatever the case may be. Statistically, these are two different races, and duel number two has been in the past. Now, the last 3 years in the next gen, you might say it's slightly different. However, I would still argue that it's slightly more aggressive towards starting guys up front, whereas duel number one has been, you're like third to 15th, 16th and stuff. Duel number two has been much more heavy in the top 10 starting positions, as you see on your screen. And ironically, or maybe not ironically, that's where we're at tonight, or that's the situation we're in tonight. As we look at duel number one, okay, what I'm personally doing, let me get on the other screen. Now, yet again, I already have my lines done for the most part. I'm going to tell you the guys that I'm not playing right off the bat just to get that through. In duel number one, I am not playing Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece, or Josh Berry. So we're just gonna highlight these guys red and work backwards here. And I'm not playing Chandler Smith and Yaley. Okay. Now you can do whatever you want to do. I'm personally not playing these 5 drivers. I would not include them in the player pool. Chase Briscoe has the pole for the 500. There's no reason for him to race. We look at how pole sitters typically do. They typically they're locked in, right? Okay. When we then look at Ryan Preece and Barry, okay, now there is a lot of different avenues to analyze these races, as I said, or as as I stated in a dual video. We have manufacturer support, we have team support, we have individual drivers and what their tendencies are in these races. So a lot of things and a lot of layers to this 23 car field. Um, from a DFS standpoint, whether it's the dual race or the plate races, understanding where ownership is going to be is important. Okay. Now, yet again, I do everything manually and just lean to where I think things should be. And so at this point in the video, I'm not saying who my picks are. My first thing that I was doing this morning and what I'm doing here is identifying where ownership will be at. Okay. Now, when I look at the starting grid, where are the people, the good drivers with good teams or teammates that are going to be working together? Because for the most part, this race, real chance for it to go green. I think we'll probably see one yellow in both races. But for the most part, this race should go green. We should see green flag pit stops decide the running order at the end of the race, or at least the running order in the second half of the race. Um, I mean, obviously, they're gonna have the 60 laps to pass whatever, but depending on what people do on pit lane in terms of what their strategy is and how soon they can get reorganized and run down whoever pits first, and or if the people who pit first can organize and beat the people who are pitting secondary. That's more so what I'm focusing on. And so identifying ownership, what team or what drivers are more likely to be together during the pits, and in turn what drivers are most likely to gain positions during that situation and be up front towards the end of the race. Say we get a late race yellow, whatever the case may be. We're trying to identify people who are going to be in the top 10. So when I look at this here, the big good drivers in this field are Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick right off the bat. Okay. I would be floored and shocked if these two do not have the prerogative of racing up front. I would absolutely be floored beyond belief if Bubba Wallace is not competing to win this duel. In the same situation here, we have a very heavy. Now the Ford presence up here in this race with Briscoe, Priest, and Barry. You have Briscoe, Priest. You have Briscoe, Priest, Barry. Actually, we have and Zane Smith. I was trying to find the other Ford up here. Actually, Briscoe's in a Toyota. But the Ford presence in this race is pretty much non-existent, not only due to a manufacturer side, but everybody who's in a Ford, I don't view them as actually having the ability to control the race, to charge through the field. I just don't see it. That's why I'm eliminating the pole sitter, Priest, Barry, obviously Chandler Smith and JJ Ailey. So, like, I have no interest in Priest and Barry. They're on lone wolves. They're going to be absolutely without help. For the most part, you're going to see Zane Smith, Barry, and Priest pretty much have to work together in this race, but I just don't see them being able to maintain a rank position up front. So, highlighting the ownership going to Reddick, Wallace, the next group that's going to have a decisive battle and who's going to compete for duel number one, finishing up front and racing, that is Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. Okay. Yet again, the ownership of a direct number. Um, and yet again, I hand build everything for NASCAR. I do my projections. I hand build everything. I'm not really concerned for a dual race or what the exact percentage is. Just understanding where ownership is going to be is good enough for me. You're going to have Kyle Busch, Elliott, and Byron leading the Chevrolet brigade. Not only that, in this race, you have the entirety of Spire Motorsports. So I think what we're going to see is a direct competition between the main Chevy frontrunners and Truex and Gibbs with Reddick and Wallace. Now I'm not entirely sure what Truex's ownership comes down to. In fact, I'm not even entirely sure how his race plays out. He's locked in the 500, but I find it very unlikely that Truex rides. Now he could do that, whatever. But for the most part, even if he's riding or something, I think he's going to be riding around the Joe Gibbs cars and the 2311 cars. So I think he is very much in play. Gibbs, now I haven't mentioned him in terms of having the skill level so on and so forth. But he's going to be up front with these guys. He runs up front. But the main thing about Gibbs is he's 8,200. As you're building lineups, as you're looking through different builds and different constructions, we're seeing, whether it's my projections, other people, like we're seeing that Gibbs is being used in quite a lot of lineups. And for and because of that, I think Gibbs is going to carry quite a lot of ownership, whether you like him or not. And so when we look at Kyle Busch, Elliott, William Byron, Gibbs, Reddick, and Wallace, these 6 individual drivers are going to be, the most popular drivers. Now, thank God we can't just fit them all in one lineup, because that would have been lame. But for the most part, I think there's a good chance we see 3 to 4 of these guys be optimal at the end of the race. Everything else is going to come down to where either value came from to fit these guys in the race, and or what the rest of this slate does. Okay, and what I mean by that is Austin Dillon, very likely that, like, when we're talking about pitting, I mean, this is the most important thing to get correct. When we're talking about pitting, I'm going to lean to the Chevrolet drivers probably short pitting first. That's the tendency they normally lean to. I would be surprised if Toyota beats them to pit lane. So when they go into pit lane, regardless of where they're running, both Dillons, Kyle Busch, William Byron, Chase Elliott, and most likely Hocevar, Haley, and McDowell are all pitting together. Now, I mean, fucking if Chastain has joined him, if Stenhouse has joined him, whatever, that group is most likely going to be the group that pits together. So yet again, whether we have Chevys join them or not, when they leave pit lane, these guys are going to be together. There's a real chance that they're able to leave pit lane and get lined up and able to negate whatever fast entry, fast exit, whatever speed the remaining field has when they leave pit lane, because they're going to be out on the field or out on the track when the other guys are, on the apron, and you want to be the first ones to pit and stuff. So that's the main reason why I have so much interest in, the Chevy drivers here and stuff, and specifically Kyle Busch and Elliott. But as we go down, I think Austin Dillon, I honestly think Dillon, Ty Dillon, Zane Smith all in play. Now, granted, we're going to have to use these guys to get different in some way. Otherwise, we don't want duplicated lineups and stuff. But that's the yellow guys are where ownership is going to come to. Now, in the secondary ownership category, we have Chastain and Stenhouse. Okay. Now, yet again, I think Chastain is most likely going to stay with Castroneves, help him out, and not even like, oh my God, help him out in the race. No, like, I'm sure Justin and the Trackhouse gang is like, hey, just follow, Chastain, fill the car out, Helio. I mean, he's going to be running the ARCA race on Saturday anyway. He's just here to get comfortable with the car. He's in the fucking race. It doesn't matter. So because of that, I'm actually concerned about Chastain. When we look at where Chastain has performed in these races, okay, let's look at dual. I'm really not wanting to use older races. I'd like to see where he's been recently in Trackhouse. So going back to dual 2, we've seen that he's qualified up front. He started 5th last year and he finished 11th. Okay. 2023, he started 8th and finished 11th. 2022, he started 4th and he finished 10th. Okay. So now a lot of that played out to the heavy, presence of, Fords beating these guys out on pit lane. We had, like, whatever the case may be, Chastain has finished 10th and 11th last 3 years. Okay. Now he's starting, 19th. So, I mean, that's 9 positions, but I just haven't exactly been a fan of how Chastain has performed in these duels. Okay. So when we're building, now I'm not saying I don't have Chastain. I mean, at the moment I currently have, I got 47% Chastain. Okay. So you might be like, why are you talking so much about this? Well, I got a player pool of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I got 15 of the 23 guys in here. Okay. So 47 is actually on the lower end of ownership or my own personal exposure, right? Whatever. But I am concerned about Chastain. In the same vein, I have the same feeling about Stenhouse. Now, Stenhouse wants has he wants to run up front and stuff, but Stenhouse yet again the Chevys just absolutely f themselves in pit lane. And being a one car team, you are stuck being with the rest of the Chevy brigade. And when we look at Stenhouse last year, started 16th, he finished 20th. We look at 2023, he started 18th and he finished 16th. Okay, I believe he was in Bill 2. And so in 2022, he started 22nd and he finished 8th. Okay. So similar vein to Chastain, I'm really concerned about their approach in this race because, I mean, obviously we love Stenhouse for the 500. We love him at the plate races, but in the 60 lap race and with the what I think is a disadvantage in true strategy, Stenhouse is not in control of his destiny in this race at all. Um, the Toyotas are going to be racing up front. We're going to have Elliott, the RCR guys, the two Hendrick guys in here. Like these are the direct competitors for a top 6 and everything. Top 8. There's a real chance Chastain and Stenhouse finish like 11th and 12th, and I don't know if that's going to be enough. So, yet again, they might be popular, whatever the case may be. I'm much more hesitant on these two individuals versus the guys in yellow here. Past that, um, obviously the guys in yellow, great play. I would advise you to be very heavy on the guys from 7th to 18th as we're building out lineups, as you're trying to force in the expensive guys. I personally like Hocevar. I like Haley. I'm playing McDowell. I'm playing AJ Allmendinger. I don't really have any real feels towards them. Like, I mean, Haley's 74, Carson's 78. Like, if you're paying up for expensive guys, you're going to be just going to these guys by de facto at their value. Perfectly okay with that. I mean, that's the reason why Austin Dillon at 54 is so enticing, and I'm going to have ownership to Dillon because he's 5,400 in a slate this tight. You play, Dillon as the value, then you can jam in 8 and 9K guys with no issue. That's why Dillon is in play. I actually really, really like how DraftKings did the pricing for these two races specifically. I think it lends itself to a lot of different uh, combinations, a lot of different lineups. Also, apologize for all the slobbering. I'm just trying not to cough on stream because I've been coughing like crazy today. But I really, really like the pricing of both of these duels, and I think it allows us to possibly not run into absolute stupid trains in these two duels. I think there's a lot of guys in play. Yet again, I'm not playing Yaley. I'm not playing Chandler Smith. I'm not playing Barry. Not playing Priest. Not playing Briscoe. Um, I currently have no Castro Neves. I don't feel the need to have that. Allgaier, I don't know why he's 84. If he was in the 7K range, I'd have much more interest in him because when we look at what he has to do, Truex is locked in, Castronev is in. Like it doesn't matter. Okay, now I'd be kind of tilted if if Castro if it makes it 40 cars and he boots out Allgaier, that's actually going to be quite disappointing. That means Allgaier had to be involved in a wreck, but yet again, Allgaier is going to be pitting directly with the Hendrick guys. I would be shocked if he doesn't pit with Hendrick and he doesn't pit with the RCR guys. Because of that, just on speed alone, he's going to beat Chandler Smith. He's going to beat Yaley. So real chance, like Allgaier is locked in to the transfer position. I think Castroneves is just going to get the feel. They're locked in. They don't really care. Obviously they want the purse money, but if stuff comes like head to head, I like Allgaier to outperform Castroneves. But the fact that he's going to be pitting with the Hendrick guys, real chance Allgaier could finish like 7th in this race due to strategy. If it goes green, if we get yellows and stuff, that's where I think that goes out of the realm of possibility. But if we go green, if we get the pit stops, I think Allgaier is going to cycle out with the Chevy guys and probably end up running like 11th towards towards the end of the race. Need to get one. Oh boy, I gotta open my new one. Hold on. Let me mute this so I'm not just making noises and stuff. And then we'll talk about Duel 2. So give me like 11 seconds. All right, duel number 2. So, yet again, in the trends, we lean towards duel 2, for whatever reason. And this is why I don't combine them either. I mean, we could, whatever, right? But there's just tendencies that happen in both duels. Sometimes there's more yells in duel 2. For whatever reason, duel 2 seems to be a lot more aggressive in terms of good drivers being able to finish well. And when we look at duel 2 of where people are starting, I mean, this is a absolutely King Kong who's who of the plate racing gods in the top 10 here. Logano, Hamlin, Bell, Larson, Bowman, Keselowski, Busher, Blaney. Those individual drivers there, that one of those will be the dual winner. I can tell you that right now. Real chance, your top 5 drivers are found in the drivers I just listed there. Okay. So it then comes into a pricing situation and just what happens with everybody else. Now, the reason why this is so important is because when you look at how people, the tendencies of these drivers to race in these uh, duels, Logano wants to lead, Hamlin wants to lead. We're going to have Hamlin and Bell grouped together. Now, granted, they're on a bit of an island. The rest of the Toyota brigade is in the back of the field. They're going to pit together yet again. So, I mean, we could, which we'll talk about the back half of the field in a minute. They're going to be up front unless Hamlin sees something that he doesn't like. But when we look at who's going to be up there, I don't see a reason why Hamlin would back out of this. I don't think we're going to see a lot of 3 wide. Now, that's more, in my opinion, much more important in duel 2 based on the aggressive tendencies of these drivers versus duel 1, but I don't see Hamlin backing out. Okay. Larson, Bowman by default going to be competing for a top 10. Okay. They didn't get the pole, and they're clearly not, Hendrick in terms of single car speed, isn't where they're at years ago. Okay. So if we're looking at, the duels and the how bad the Hendrick guys are performing, that's back when they were locked in and stuff. I think Larson and Bowman are going to race, right? And then Keselowski and Busher. Keselowski, Busher, Blaney, literally Siamese twins or triplets, rather. These 3 individuals going to be joined at the hip. Okay. Real chance. Now, when we look back at what happened last year, Cindric started second in duel 2. He finished second. When we look at what happened in duel 1, Logano got the pole, finished 7th. Okay. Penske seems to have a different approach than what Hendrick does. Yet again, they could just be Penske and they just don't care. Or, yet again, I just think the Fords have an advantage on the plate races, specifically if you're a good driver. Now, it's not massively huge. It's not like they're drastically faster, but they have an advantage based on the composition of their drivers, okay? I'm not going to play Cindric just based on the fact I don't play first place, but I think Cindric finishes 8th in this race. I think Hamlin is competing for the win. Blaney, Busher, Keselowski, all going to be up there at the end of the race, right? The people who are starting in the top 10 have a real chance of being the guys who finish in the top 10 in this race specifically. So, due to that, I'm much more heavy on the guys starting in the single digits in this race versus duel number 1. Secondly, yet again, almost the same situation or the same discussion that we had with Austin Dillon from duel 1 and Ty Gibbs can be said with Bowman. $6,800. If we're paying up for so many expensive guys, and we look at where you're at in the 6K range, you have Bowman, you have Herbst, you have Gregson. Those would be where everything centers around. I really like Bowman in this range here. I think he's going to compete. I think Hendrick's going to compete. And if anything, sorry, Larson and Bowman are probably either going to finish. I think it's a very easy coin flip of finishing in the top 5 or finishing like 13th and 14th. There's really no in between. They're going to try and outrun the Fords, or they're just going to get beat by the Fords and finish outside the top 10. But based on his pricing, that's what I like, or that's why I like Bowman. So when we look at ownership in this race, it's clearly Blaney, it's clearly Keselowski, clearly Busher. And then I would actually end up going to Hamlin and Logano of where ownership is going to be at in this duel. Okay. Yet again, secondary ownership would then probably default to Bell, Larson, possibly Bowman, depending on how many things are jamming him or Gillen in. But there's really no ownership in the back of this field until you get to Jones and Nemechek, right? So if we're looking at where ownership is in duel number 2, it's the guys highlighted in yellow, right? I guess I'll throw Bell in there just so we can kind of identify where stuff is at. We'll highlight Larson as well. But it seems that this race, I actually really, yet again, I like the price and I like the approach that's needed in both these slates from a line construction standpoint. But this race seems like a really easy one to not get duplicated on, because you play the good guys up front and then you play like Cole Custer, or you play Gregson, or you play Gillen, or you play Bowman, or you play SVG as like a one-off. Like, yet again, I'm not playing Cindric. I don't think Cody's going to do anything. Okay, I love him for the 500. You better believe I'm fucking betting my life savings on Cody Ware on big CW. Not playing Alfredo. Alfredo's gonna. If there's a wreck in this race, it's gonna be because Alfredo causes it. That I think that's where we're at. I think McLeod is in play. If Alfredo is gonna be aggressive, now again, I could just be wrong about this, but when we look at how Alfredo and this team is aggressive, or how they race, Alfredo's aggressive. I think we're going to see Alfredo run inside the top 12 for the most of the race, or try and, I think he's just going to go out there and race. BJ is going to be forced to be in a situation to outrun him, right? I mean, granted, he has to race LaJoy, but like BJ McLeod has the ability to outrun both drivers in here and race his way in. I think he's much more viable than any of the other open cars due to that. And he's starting 21st at 5,200, you can then literally force in everybody start inside the top 10 or whoever you want, right? So I think BJ's in play. I like Cole Custer as a one-off to get different. I like Johnson. Everybody else who is just white, like I like as one-offs. I like to get different. And once you start building, you figure out kind of like the obvious build patterns of like, hey, there's probably Keselowski, Buescher, and Blaney probably going to be a really popular combo. Might want to play a Galaxy, Brain LaJoy, or like BJ, or like Suarez or Greg. Like, you're going to want to play, an uglier guy with that combination, right? Hey, if I'm using, Keselowski, Blaney, and then I go, oh, I need a guy in the back who can gain positions, and then you play like Jones. Hey, be aware, probably going to be owned. Like, throw some guys in there who are going to get your lineups different and stuff. I really, really like both these slates this year. I think these duels are going to be a blast. Now, maybe it's more fun for me as well because, as I said, I'm doing 20 lines for everything. And at that point, I'm able to get where I want to get. But in Duel 2, I want to be much more aggressive on starting guys up front. And when we look at who's good and who's bad, good guys, bad guys, we want to play the good guy. It's literally a who's who of, in the top 10 on this slate. Now, granted, I did mention Cindric, like, finishing or possibly finishing like in the top 7 or whatever. Just speaking on that really fast, like, I'm not going to give all the projections away, but do be aware, he falls out of first no matter what happens. Not only is that, losing, a position, that's going from 45 points winning the race automatically down to 42. -1. I mean, Cindric is right off the bat at 41 points in second place. He falls to third. Cindric's at 39. He falls to fourth. Cindric is at 37. Okay. Now he's 6,000. As I said, I think he probably finishes, around 7 or so. That's probably going to be, and I mean, if he does any worse, then clearly it's not going to work. And I think Cindric is probably in line to get some laps led too. Now, I don't know if he's going to, fight tooth and nail with Hamlin and Logano there, but I think Cindric's outcomes are realistically around, I got him for 35.35 points. I think his outcomes are realistically around 29 to 34. anything under 34 is probably not going to work. But just going into more detail, like Cindric and Penske has a tendency to have their guys finish in the top 10 and top six. If this race goes green and Fords, which I think will be the dominant manufacturer in this race specifically, if we go the 60 laps green, there's a real chance Cindric finishes third or in the top five. Like, I'm not going to play him as a rule. I just don't play the guy starting first, but being aware of all the outcomes, I think that's actually very much a situation that can happen. Now, granted, 35, there's a ton of people in this race that are going to be scoring mid 40s. So if Cindric is making it, that means like every expensive guy in this race is having to be shoved in, and you need a 6K play. Which at that point, I think Herbst can outscore him. Herbst, Gregson, all these guys are projected really, really close together. There's a real chance. What is it? Sorry, I just got a text message. I don't know the point I was making. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, just like talking Cindric. I'm not going to play him, but if you're running stuff and you're using my projection, Cindric might end up being in a couple lineups. I'm not going to do that, but that's probably why he's going to pop up. It's whatever you want to do. If you have the stones, do that. I'm not going to. I think playing the pole sitter in any of these races is stupid. But if this is the race that would be in line to do that, due to who's up here, the team specifically. I mean, Cindric, Logano, Blaney, Penske's going to stay together. Ford's going to stay together. So that's in play. As I've yapped for half an hour now, breaking everything through, now we can look at chat and everything. I'll put myself back on. I do got to respond to this really fast, so I do apologize. I will give me like 20 seconds really fast here. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Let's take a gander and see what's going on. Now, 35 of you guys here, I do appreciate it. Like I said, I know it's a pretty wild time. There's like 15 of you guys on Twitter. Thank you for being here. I know a lot of this will just be viewed post live and stuff. What's going on, Mark? Yeah. I mean, Sheets won the first duel last year. I forgot. I think I came in like 11th or whatever. I mean, actually, with how shitty everybody just races down plate races, they're all viable. But this one and Summer Daytona have literally been. Those 2 weeks actually have changed my life over the years. Like it's pretty fucking crazy. What's going on, Pope? We're looking forward to. I don't think that's. I mean, look, if you're concerned about losing, here, I think it's worth. I think it's worth any risk. I mean, that's why I'm personally spending as much as I am, Alexander. I think it's worth it. I single entry and dual one Pope. It's probably jamming in as many of the people that I highlight in yellow. With probably actually later. Let's take a fucking look here. I mean, if you're going single, like, man, that's not fun at all. Because most you would want get at least 4 of the guys in yellow for single entry. That's really all you can do, and just hope your last 2 guys can outscore the other 2v2s that people have in that single entry. The single entry would be rough. I would not enjoy doing that for this as well. Let's see. You've strongly. So, Alexander, what I have, I mean, I find absolute tremendous success only doing 20 lineups. I mean, here, I'll show you at the moment. So, like, this is where I'm personally at right now. I mean, I already got like, yeah, I mean, I already got 2,000 um in NASCAR right now. No, I mean, hell, we've had a pretty tremendous last month um of just absolutely crucifying stuff. So I'm kind of actually just free rolling um Daytona. That's why I'm just doing this. I'm not going to 150 unless I bank the truck or Xfinity. My main interest is actually trying to get enough over the course of these days to justify entering 4 lineups in the Screaming Eagle, because that's an additional 2,000. That's mainly what I'm focusing on. So I'm not at the moment. I'm not 115 Sunday. That could absolutely change if stuff happens. But that's not that's not planned at the moment. I don't feel the need at all to do that. Based on how I play, based on looking at CSVs of past races versus opponents and stuff, I don't feel the need that I don't feel like I need to do 150 to have a realistic chance. So that's why I'm not doing that. Past that, Duel 2 question. You prefer Ford mixed with Toyota in Duel 2? So it's, I mean, like I talk teams a lot. It's so funny because, like, in my head, if I have to analyze like what the priorities are, it's or how I build lineups. It's drivers, then teams, then manufacturers. Like if the manufacturers line up, they line up. Like, I know I talk about them a lot, but in terms of like priority, they're actually like third. They're the tertiary priority. So, um, I mean, I don't really know why that would be a question, because like if you're playing the good guys here, like you're going to end up with the Ford and Toyotas anyway. Um, because there's really no Chevys in this race that are worth playing, right? Like, you have Suarez, if I'm not mistaken, actually. You have you have like you have Larson, you have Bowman. Pretty much the only two Chevys viable. Don't know what Suarez is going to do. And then like Anthony Alfredo, BJ McLeod and Cody Ware. Like, there's really like no, actually Cody's going to Ford. Like, there's really no Chevys in this race anyway. So that seems to me kind of like an irrelevant question, because uh, there's really no Chevys anyway to really stack or do anything with, right? What else? I do believe that's it. I can't think of anything else to say, or I can't think of anything else to analyze. I mean, we were here for 40 minutes. I don't think that's bad at all. We have where we at 2 hours and 40 minutes for the first one to lock. That's not too bad at all. I think I about covered everything. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will be live tomorrow for the truck. Obviously, I'll be live for everything this week, right? But yeah, thank you for tuning in during the day. If you're at your work, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you for being here. And best of luck, guys. Enjoy the races. And I will see you guys later. Bye bye. See ya tomorrow. Bye bye.